not envisage a situation in which one of them would be found not to have committed, because the work of the deputy president is to ensure that you advise the president to be able to govern in accordance with the constitution, so that in a situation where it is found that the president has done something unlawful, it is presupposed that he had received some advice which was also inconsistent with the constitution from his deputy. And therefore, I think this is a scenario where most of them are likely to sink together or survive together. But I do not see in the 36 instances how they will survive at least 10 of them.
Okay.
I am confident they cannot survive 10.
Eric, I have a question. I don't know how to, what is the procedure for requesting a mic? May I ask the question?
Go ahead, Prof.
So you see, my understanding is that, so there are two things. The one is that Article 1 gives us a substantive right as the sovereign to exercise, to govern ourselves. But the Constitution does not give us a procedural mechanism for exercising that right. So that is on one hand. On the other hand, there is the question of the performance or lack of performance of the current executive. So is the petition about the former, asking the court, please, we know we have a substantive right, which is that we can exercise our power directly, and as Kibe is saying, that power can be exercised through appointment and removal. So please give us a procedural mechanism for doing that. Or is the petition about telling the court that these people have not performed and we want to prove that they are not performed, which is why we are enumerating these 36 instances. I think, in my respectful opinion, that the latter route is a slippery one. The more solid route is to go and ask the court for a procedural mechanism. As I said earlier, the people really do not need a reason to recall their executive, if they so wish. As long as we're able to say that, look, give us some procedural thresholds. What is the threshold? Do we need 60%? What is the standard practice, for example? And this has been done before. The recall of a president is a very, very popular mechanism for exercising power directly in Latin America. So I just want to get a sense from the petitioners, what is it that you're asking the court to do?
Very good
Because
question.
I think my sense is that I think asking the court for a procedure is the way to go. Thank you.
Very good question, Professor Migai.
Answer that question. Erica, that's hi, Professor Migai. Thank you for that question. Now, the direct answer, and thank you for recognizing that Article 1 establishes the substantive right of people to exercise their sovereign power directly. Now, on the procedure, I do not think that you need any procedure beyond what is already provided. Why do I say so? Article 3 of the Constitution says the people have a right to go and defend the Constitution. Article 88 says that one of the mandates of IEBC is to hold elections and referendum. And therefore, there is already in existence the fact that because IEBC exists, and their job is to hold referendum, the only question that is, what is it that we are going to hold this referendum on? And the referendum in this case would be on the removal. So that the moment you have accepted that it would be for removal, you go back like to the situation in 2004, even when the law was not this developed, where the High Court basically said that a new constitution would need to receive the approval of the people. And that was to be through a referendum. Therefore, there is nothing more, because the Kenya Constitution expressly recognizes the referendum and it provides that it will be held by IEBC. And the rules of the referendum is simple majority, that the people who come out to vote, if the majority are in favor, then the motion is carried. Therefore, I do not think that you need any referendum whatsoever. The only thing that would have been required in a situation, in talking about the need to have a referendum law, it has taken forever because there are just a few referendum provisions in the Elections Act, which we are viewed to be inadequate. But it doesn't follow that if a law that ought to be put in place is not in existence, that a constitutional right would not be exercised. Constitutional rights can be exercised because in 2004, without a referendum act or the provision of referendum in the law, the High Court established the idea of a referendum, and it was held in 2005, giving birth to ODM. And in 2010, we also had the final referendum that gave us the 2010 constitution. So it would be a false argument for anyone to argue that there is no procedure. There is an intact procedure already in existence. And the mandate to carry the referendum is on the IEC and the constitution.
Thank you, Wakili Kibemugai. Let's hear from other speakers. I know I can see Fred Ogola, one of the petitioners. You have raised your hand. You want to speak, but let's hear first from Dr. Kasim. Dr. Kasim, you have the mic.
Okay, thank you. I wish to seek some two clarifications.
Kasimu, you are very faint. We can't hear you.
Okay, now you can get me.
Very, very faintly.
Okay, I have some two suggestions and some clarification. You can get me clear now?
You're very faint, Kasim. I think just do something about your mic.
Yeah.
Let's mute you for a bit, and then let's hear first from Nelson. Nelson Amenya, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Latif, for this space. Mine is just to ask a few questions regarding this exercise that is being undertaken to for a referendum to recall the president and the deputy. And I just want to draw your attention to in 1937, Franklin D. Roosevelt, he was a very popular president. And when he when he was elected president, at that moment, there was the Great Depression, and he was trying to make policies to shield Americans from the Great Depression. And one of the things he did was to come up with something called the deal. So you can compare this to what President Ruto is trying to do, like the SHIF or the housing, affordable housing. And at some point, some people went to court. And when they went to court, some of the proposals from the deal were struck down by the courts. And then Franklin D. Roosevelt was very angry at this. And what he did, he tried to ask, it was called the court parking plan. So he tried to make the Supreme Court judges to become, to be more, so that it's easier to deal with them, because less judges means that it's harder to deal with them. So basically, he wanted to have a little bit more control over the judiciary. And well, obviously, it was rejected, and people said, no, the president cannot have absolute power over the judiciary. There has to be a balance of power between the institutions. So, in my view, what we are trying to do basically is to remove the individuals, President Ruto and his deputy, but we forget that the institutions we have in Kenya are the ones that there is a big challenge. The executive is in bed with parliament, the National Assembly. Basically, if President Ruto wants to pass anything, parliament is at his disposal, and it's only a little bit in the judiciary where it's a little bit more independent. We can see sometimes they reject, like for example, now we are about to petition for this JKIA deal to be interjected. So perhaps it will be stopped because the judiciary is a little bit more independent, but the National Assembly is not independent at all. And as you all know, the absolute power obviously corrupts anyone. And today, if we remove President Ruto and Rigathi Gachagua from power, the next president we will put because of the same institutions that we have not addressed, they will become the same. The power that they will wield will corrupt them, and it will be a cycle. So, for me, I'm trying to ask: should we try and change the system and the institutions? Because in my point of view, the issue is not the person or the president. The issue is the institution, and you can see from this story I gave you from 1937 of Franklin D. Roosevelt. He was a great leader,
So Nelson,
but
let me interrupt
yeah,
you.
uh-huh.
So what are you suggesting?
For me, it would
What
be
do you
better
propose?
if my proposal is to first of all look at the institutions we have. We need to have strong institutions that will have systems of restraint to the presidency so that they cannot just do what they want. And if we do that, we will not care who's president because there'll be enough systems to restrain their power. So this is my
Okay.
proposal.
So how do we do that, Nelson?
Eric, can I say something on that so that there's no
Yes,
confusion
Cyprian.
whatsoever? Do I have your permission,
Go
Eric?
ahead.
I want to quote what Professor Kibwana has said nearly 70 times since we passed the Constitution, that the new Constitution did not bring a new culture. What it did is that we have been seeing change of form. We have been creating institutions, but the tradition and the culture never changed. What the 25th of June Gen Z revolution did was to say, this is the end of that old culture of KANU. The constitution we created and promulgated in 2010 requires that it is approached and upheld so that there is a new culture which can be able to produce a new country. So what my brother has just said there is completely wrong, I have to say that, so that nobody leaves this space with any confusion whatsoever. Even Parliament from 25th of June going forward, if it tries to again usurp and defy the will of the people of Kenya to impose laws and policies that are against the constitution, it will be overrun again and again so that future institutions and occupants will obey the constitution. So it's not true that we need to change institutions. No more change is required. The form is in place. A new culture is what has been set out on 25th of June.
Thank you, Cyprian. You quoted Professor Kivuda Kibwana. Prof is here now and has got speaker rights. Prof, let's hear from you briefly as we pick other callers. I know there's a Gidi on the line. Samuel, you also had requested to speak. Dr. Kasimu, you had wanted to speak as well, and many others. If you can also ask a question through the comment section, I will read out some of those questions or comments later as we continue this conversation. Professor Kivuda Kibwana.
Eric, can I finish before Professor comes in?
Okay, Nelson, quickly, a short one.
Yeah. So my solution was to basically recall the MPs and have MPs who represent the people. And this way, when the National Assembly is strong, then all other institutions will follow suit.
Thank you. We hear you. Prof. Kibwana?
Thank you very much, Eric and Mutiora. I want to start by saying that Article 1, Article 3, and beginning with Article 1 says if delegated authority, the people's delegated authority is abused, how do citizens enforce their direct power? If they elected, for example, in terms of the executive, can they de-elect? How do they withdraw their delegated authority when they deem that there's been abuse of power, lack of legitimacy, incompetence, going against the constitution, and even what Professor Migai said, when the executive is not serving them Article 1, which talks about the interpretation of the Constitution. And the people also exercise their direct power through elections, through public participation, through referendum. And now I think we are focusing more on other direct action, like going to court to withdraw them to an elected president and deputy president. And I like what Professor Migai was saying, that there is a substantive right in Article 1 and Article 3, but there isn't a direct procedural way of achieving it. So that this social contract doctrine, which has been translated in the Constitution to Article 1, there isn't now the way in which, apart from elections, public participation, the usual referenda, even a referenda for the Constitution, there isn't that direct way. Now, I think
Cyprian, please mute.
challenge is successful, I think there are certain things that one has to look at. I was wondering if it was, for example, something going to the Supreme Court to seek an opinion. That's one way, an advisory opinion from the Supreme Court about what is the procedural way of enforcing Article 1 outside the elections, public participation, the usual referenda, including referenda constitution. So if violated, you are asking the court to do two things simultaneously: to give you the procedural way and use that procedural way to and I think that's where the guy is having some problems of, is the court going to be ready to do both, or is it safer to do stage 1, the procedural right, and then proceed subsequently? But
Prof. I'm not sure whether I'm the one who has lost Prof. Can you all hear me? Am I here?
We can hear you, Eric, but I think we've lost Prof. Kibwana.
Okay. So let me bring in Samuel. Samuel, you wanted to raise a point or ask a question. Samuel, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance. First of all, thank you for all the speakers who have spoken today. Thank you, guys. We know you are a busy people, but coming to educate our people is very nice and is very honorable of you. First of all, to the petitioners, that's a very brave move, very brave. But my question is, I'm going to give a suggestion, then I'm going to ask my question that I really want to ask. We all know that justice system in particular in the Republic of Kenya is rotted to the core. We cannot trust the justice system, to be honest. We have doctors of law here, we have lawyers, and we respect you guys, but the justice system is rotted. It has never served the common mwananchi. Even if we take this movement to court, it's a good idea, But these people, as long as Ruto is still in office where he is right now, there's nothing is going to happen. Nothing. Like that one I am. So here is my question to the professors and the doctor. Is there any way we can amend the Article 1 and the Article 3 to be, because the article, the first, the sovereign of the people, if there is a way we can amend this constitution for us to be able to exercise that right as a sovereign, because even after I read, it doesn't give a clear of how the people can participate directly themselves, apart from the either electing or like the constitution is not so much clear. To the professors here, how can we amend it to make sure that we can exercise our power? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the question is how we can amend. Let me pick a couple of more speakers as well. And I want to balance gender here. Apart from the two ladies who are part of the petitioners who've spoken, we've not heard from other ladies. And I think, Mudiora, you can also help me look for more and more ladies who'd like to speak, and we give them the mic. Laika, let's hear from you. Laika?
Sorry, guys. I'll speak in a moment. I'll be right back. Sorry.
All right. Okay, Laika. Dr. Kasim, you had started speaking, so let me just give you this mic before I bring in Hannah. And Kasim, I don't know what's up with you.
Now you can get
You
me.
have two. No, Kasim.
Can you get me?
Kasim, I think you have got two gadgets that are on.
No, it's only one.
Okay, go ahead. A brief one, although you're very faint.
Okay, I have a suggestion and a question. Is it possible to use Article 257 to amend it? We have a popular initiative to amend the constitution so that we include a clause where we can recall a president through a referendum. Then number two, if you look at Article 257, it talks of 1 million registered voters. Is that part not in a violation of the constitution? Because if you talk of 1 million registered, what about those people who are above 18 and they have an ID card and they are not registered voters? They cannot participate in amending the constitution. That's my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have the Wakilis answer that. Please, lawyers in the house, you can take this down, and also some of the petitioners, you can come in. Hannah?
Thank you, Eric, and your co-host, and everybody on the platform. Yango Simengi, I just got one crucial question, which is, as it is, up to where we are today, uh, we have a constitution, yes, but constitutionality is not being practiced. The constitutions is not... nobody is obeying by those constitutions. We've seen that left, right, center. Now, can we not get the existing constitution to deliver for the many and not the few before we say we want to fiddle with the constitution? Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Mohammed Dulier. Mohammed, you are here? Okay. Fred Ogola.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric, and all the listeners. So I'll go to answer, first of all, the question that came from Kasim by saying that
Hi, Eric.
KBT.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mohammed, just hold on a minute. We'll come back to you.
Okay.
So thank you very much. So I'm saying that KBT has got very many initiatives inside it. So concerned citizens under KBT also has a bill which was to be launched on 1st of June, Madaraka Day, that can amend the article, around Article 257 of the Constitution to give a mechanism on which you can actually recall the president directly through a referendum. But we are still saying that even the constitution as it is can still have that mechanism. So we are agreed we are going to have what is called land, sea, and air attack on that status to make this happen. And looking at what Hannah has said, I also want to respond shortly by saying that, yeah, you can say you can enforce the constitution. And today we gave a statement and we said that no Kenyan can get his right until we have the right person in state house. And we cannot have the right person in status if we cannot remove the wrong person and replace with the right person. And lastly, we have to send a precedence that there is no guarantee that once you win an election or term, you can stay forever. And that message will also go to anybody seeking an office, knowing that you stay as your
Eric, is
performance
it my
suits you.
connection or we've lost communications here?
I can hear Prof.
We can hear we can hear Professor Fred Ogola very, very clearly. So I don't know what the challenge could be, but Professor Ogola is very clear.
Yes, indeed he is.
All right.
So I'm just concluding by saying that we also need to send a precedent so that nobody can ever come to office thinking about 5 years. You have to be as good as your last assignment. So, as you are, even for us home, we are husbands, and I'm sure women are in this platform. Women, if we don't perform tonight, tomorrow, we are not taken with the results we performed last year. So everybody must know that every assignment you must keep your marriage vows. Just like if you are a head of state, you must ensure you execute as a head of state in every function, every 30 seconds of your work, and every 60 seconds of your work, every 60 minutes of an hour, and every 24 hours of a day, 7 days in a week, and 365 days in a year. That is how it is to be presidential. And I want to insist that we should not worry about the mechanism. Sovereignty, the Article 1, I'm writing a commentary. The sovereign power, you don't have even to be told in details how to do it. You should just know you have it and it is superior. And that's what I'm telling you. Gen Z told us that in very unclear terms. I even said earlier, they don't have to send you notification. Because why should the owner of your house of the house tell you? Even Jesus in the story of the brides, he will come at an hour that the brides do not know. So just be ready. So if you're a head of state, be ready. We will come at an hour that you do not know. We won't specify that to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Well, yeah.
Thank you very much, Eric. Uh, Mine is not about the law. I'm not a lawyer, and there are better lawyer. There are people who are very good in law who are in the room. Guys like Migaya Ketch, my very good friend and classmate and deskmate and housemate. We have, of course, Professor Kivuda Kibwana. I can see also people like Harvey. Mine is just about this whole thing and how, you know, Gen Z are handling it. Look, I think this requires a lot of patience. And as a father of a Gen Z, I don't think that is something Gen Zs are very maybe good at. What is going to happen is the this you know these things are not done in a very fast manner the way everybody thinks they would happen. We're in Kenya, we live in Kenya, we grew up in Kenya, we know what happens. My fear is that there is going to be a lost opportunity if people go about it the wrong way. Why am I saying this? I think the best way to bring about change is through the ballot. And if Gen Zs want to bring change in this country, they have to start organizing themselves. They have to put the infrastructure in place. They have to form, movements. They have to register. They have to mobilize. They have to give people IDs. They have to do. They have to exert all this energy in that direction. We've got only 3 years or even less left to the ballot. The institutions that basically are very vital in elections, like IEBC, they have to be involved. They have to, yes, like the issue of finance bill. I said, I remember, I don't know if you remember my tweet, Eric, and everyone else, in 2023, I said this thing is sumu. It's going to haunt this administration. And that was because of the housing levy and other things. And I mean, eventually, it was 1 year late, but it came to pass. Now, saying when you go to things like finance bill, you have the right, and it's something that affects you immediately. So I actually supported the finance bill and basically the protests against the finance bill. You can use protests for events or things that you don't want at that particular time. But this issue of, let's remove the president, let's recall the president, let's do a referendum. Yes, okay, you will do it. You'll spend a lot of time on it. You might succeed, you might not succeed. If you succeed, another guy who behaves the same way as the past presidents will come on board. Are you going to keep on doing the same things all the time? The big problem we have is a generational issue. The people who I would even say ruled us basically have got totally different view in life. So if you want to bring a proper change, I think the best way to go about it is through the ballot. And the only way you can do that is if you start preparing now. What I can foresee, and there are a lot of things I've said basically which came to pass, is all this noise. You have this protest, you have the tear gas. The government is going to fight back. By the time you say, I'm going to remove a president from office, my friend, so many things will go bad. And even if you succeed, and for you to restart this country's economy and everything else, it will continue to hurt you. So the best way to approach this is to start early. Put some of this energy into mobilizing, organizing, go get the right candidates at every level, MCA, MPs, governors, the presidency, everywhere. And then you might not even get the presidency. You might not get anything. You might get 50 MPs, 20 MPs. It doesn't matter. That itself is a start. It's good start for change. If you succeed in changing, of course, the presidency, that's also fine. My worry is people are going to spend a lot of time about nothing, about wasting their time on how are we going. Ruto must go. We have to do this. We have to do this. Then you find out it's 2027, and then what happens?
Thank you, Mohammed.
People go to elections, and then you start again. So that's my 25 cents on this.
Thank you, Elia. Can I ask you the question? Number one, referendum is a ballot as well. But also, number two, can all those things happen simultaneously? One, for jurisprudence, just finding out whether if you have a presidency or a legislature that's not responding to the wishes of the people, how do the people exercise that power? And I see that one would be what would come out of this particular petition in court.
I think on my part, I lost Eric. I can see that he's talking, but I can't hear him.
Can the others hear me?
I can hear him correctly, Cyprian. I don't know.
Yes, I can hear you, Eric.
Okay, so Elia, you got my question. Just answer it briefly. Can these two processes happen simultaneously? Organizing for the next election, but at the same time going to court to set and understand the procedures and testing the constitution on Article 1?
Yes, of course it will. But again, the more important one is, I think, the one I talked about. I think the court one, if it comes out successful, that's fine. But the other one cannot fail. I mean, if you don't do anything now, if you don't start a process to organize yourself, to belong to start, you need to form movements, political parties, you need to organize, you need to mobilize, you need to even fundraise, you need to do a lot of things to create a real movement that can shake the country. I mean, if you go to the court one, that's fine, but again, our courts, there's some court cases going on for 10 years. People can appeal. It will go to, Court of Appeal, and then you go to the Supreme Court. By that time, it's, you find yourself 6 months to an election. Then you find out that you have nothing, that you have not done anything. Then the same people will basically go and do their tribal, emotions, and then you find another president, in office, and then you have to go to the streets again. You can't bring change. You can review, for example, things like the finance bill. You can do an event. Event by event for protests, but you cannot. You can also protest, maybe to bring change, to remove even a president from an office. But then, what are you going to achieve after that? What will happen if you don't have these systems, your processes in place? You are not ready yourself to go into to assume office, because what it looks like now is people want change, but they don't want to go in there themselves and do that change. It's very hard to teach, an old dog new tricks. So if you think as a Kenyan youth or a Gen Z that I am going to revolt every time, and these people who are 60 or 70 or 80 years old in office, and you're going to allow them to be in office, and you will change their behavior, you might remove one, you bring in another one, it's going to be the same. The best and most sustainable change is if the Gen Zs themselves plan now to take over power through the ballot.
Okay, point made. Point made. Thank you very much, Mohammed. I want to pick up other callers. I know we are already getting into those hours where many of the people who are on the show will start dropping off, going to sleep. So I'd like to have a lot of this conversation while they're still up. Gidi, you have been queued for quite a while. Now is your chance. Please speak. All right, Richard Kemoy.
Okay, thanks, Eric and Muthiora. Let me begin by appreciating and thanking Professor Migaya Cage, my teacher. I'd like to just, request you, Eric, to ensure that every speaker, sticks to the subject. I think we've been, deviating quite a bit. Now, if we're going to talk about this particular petition, we are looking and seeking for ways to exercise powers under Article 1. There are other provisions of exercising, universal suffrage. And that's why I'd like to disagree with Mohammed, because if that were the only option, then there would be no need for Article 1. Let me emphasize that, and I think Professor Kate had said this, that I think the correct approach or the more beneficial approach is to seek to know from the courts how can the people exercise this power under Article 1, because we all agree there is no procedure, rather than asking the court to agree with you with the reasons and the facts and the evidence why we think the president and the deputy have lost legitimacy, so that we don't, using Professor Migai's approach, question, thinking that is a slippery road. Suppose they don't agree with you. So why don't we just leave it to the court to tell us how do we exercise this power? Okay, is it through a constituted assembly plus a referendum or just another way? Thank you.
Thank you. Mudge Rolf.
Yeah, good evening. I hope I'm clear.
You are, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, petition. What I understand at the moment is that, okay, if the courts would then give the guidance to the unclear situation in Article 1, my assumption would be that it would take us back probably to a constitutional amendment. And for me, I think a constitutional amendment when there's a crisis is not a good idea. So my suggestion would be that we have a series, or we get to a position where we have a real single serious dictatorship in the country, and the dictatorship should be the current constitution, because we are not living up to it. The president comes up with a defense act and later goes to seek the approval. So how can we, of course we can test, we need to test the constitution and seek for guidance, but we're not going to get direct solutions. That is not going to happen with the amendment. But before, until we reach that point where we know what to do, I'd really like us to get ways of even having accountability, because the current government is doing so many things that are very unconstitutional. And so how do they get away with it? Because now today we are really together here and want to talk about improvement, but we see a lot of things they do. Mudavadi, his office is unconstitutional and so many things. So how do we have a scenario whereby any president knows they have to really just go by the only dictatorship that should dictate a country, and that's the constitution. Finally, I'd like to say that we have a very good constitution. As we see, it's airtight, almost airtight, because if you want to do it according to the articles where the Senate, not the Senate, sorry, the National Assembly would then impeach the president and everything, you see that we have an orderly way. It's good that we have such an orderly way, because otherwise, the example I like to use is, if we have, for example, a war general coming over from wherever and they want to take over, we should be happy that our constitution doesn't allow that. So my point, let's try to have some accountability as we wait, but I'm also looking forward to see how that can be changed. Back to you, Eric.
Thank you much. Thank you much. And just to clarify that the petition before court is not seeking to amend the constitution. It is seeking for the court to declare that there is grounds and a procedure for going to a referendum to recall a president and a deputy president. So what the lawyers have told us, Kibe Mungai and lawyer Lempa, that they are seeking, plus the petitioners, the 14 of them, is they want the court to directly say that the people of Kenya can recall their president using Article 88, where the IEBC has the powers to conduct a referendum. Okay, I know, Prof, you've been wanting to speak for a bit, but so you can speak now, respond to a couple of the issues raised, Professor Ogola, and then we'll hear from Lucy Shege.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Eric and listeners. I think why it is critical that this petition is done, even if we forget about the issue of mobilization, like Gulay has said, is that if we do not defend this constitution, the raping, the maiming, and the destruction of this constitution will continue unchecked. And in fact, I wrote an article on the making of a one-party state. Even what has just happened this evening or afternoon, you might even find we go back to one-party state, because the people said they fought for democracy. What they have done today shows that they have actually can reverse it overnight. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm happy with what Eric you said before, that we can actually do this simultaneously and they are not mutually exclusive. I don't want to go divert, because I know Kenya Bware Twikatayo is also concerned about doing the same mobilization you're talking about. Cyprian can talk about this in the next subsequent activities. Maybe that's why it will be nice to talk more about KBT. But we're just focusing on this substantive matter. I'm sure that the declaration that we are waiting for today, I can celebrate there's a win already done, because normally the judge is not forced to to say that this matter will be heard like this. If he knew that there was crap inside this case, he could have just easily said that this is not admissible or this cannot happen. So for us, I'm happy. Let's celebrate what we have won today. First of all, to file this petition, it's taken a lot of effort. It's been filed. Secondly, it's been actually been allocated to a judge. Thirdly, that the judge has given direction, and then we are waiting for more direction. So as far as I'm concerned, the big step has been done, and
Okay.
the bigger step needs to be done as well.
Asante. Lucy? Lucy, you may unmute your mic. Nutritionist Lucy Shege. Not able to hear us? Okay, so we've been having Kitonye queued up to speak. Giddy Blackman, that's your Twitter name. Please speak now. Also not able to come in. All right, so there's some issues that have been raised by a previous speaker. In fact, who said, okay, do we really trust that this thing can go through the courts and that the system will not be manipulated in any way, that justice will be served as justice is desired to be served? I want to ask one of the petitioners, just a citizen, Janet, what do you feel here? Do you have the confidence? Do you feel that the issues being raised here are merited? Janet Modoni or any other of the petitioners, you can speak.
I can come in, Eric, if you can hear me. Can you?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to say that we have seen that on 25th of June, the people of Kenya focused on the executive and the judiciary and told them that they must do things the right way. On that day, they even went to the Supreme Court to send a message to the Supreme Court and the judiciary that hearing and listening to the people of Kenya who are the Supreme is very important. We are taking this matter to the court at a time when the court is being reminded that it is the ultimate guardian of our constitution. I want to say, let us not operate on the basis of fear or of doubt. The case that we have filed, as Wakili Kibe has said, is a very strong one, and the grounds are actually extremely imperious. So it is necessary that we do the public information and the civic mobilization as we prepare the country for the outcome, which is to defend the constitution and to actually ensure that the sovereignty of the people is enforced. I would say that it is now up to the judiciary to tell us on matters of law, what is it that we have not demonstrated that the constitution has been violated. And when we know that Article 165 requires that the High Court is the one which has to defend and interpret the Constitution. We are extremely positive. We are very confident. And all the other issues that are being raised about 2027 are in order, and we can be able to do the two of them simultaneously. Thank you very much.
Asante sana, Cyprian. One of the political questions that has, of course, been asked outside of this conversation, and I've got to bring it here, is on the organization, Kenya Bora Tuitakayo, out of the 14 petitioners. First, who is funding this petition? How are you financing it? Who's paying these wakilis? Kibe Mungai is a seasoned lawyer. Doesn't come cheap.
Can I speak to that directly?
Yes.
Yeah, let me speak to that very directly because Kibe Mongai has just disclosed that he was our lawyer in the Njoya case for NCEC, and even before the Njoya case in 2004, which is now 20 years, he had been representing NCEC pro bono, having been working at Dr. Gibson Kamau Kuria's farm, the likes of Professor Kivuda Kibwana, the likes of Justice Willie Motunga, who are actually the founders of NCC. These are lawyers who have given their lives to the work of ensuring that Kenya is established as a democracy. The second thing, and finally, is that Kenya Bora is a self-funding movement and a network of patriotic citizens of Kenya. We've continued to work directly to fundraise resources that are needed to achieve whatever convening, whatever work that is needed. And the fact that a lot of the 16 lawyers are actually pro bono lawyers, including Lempa, who is on this call, tells you that there's a remnant of many lawyers who did work even during the Mandamano, who are members of LSK, who offered to do this work pro bono and for free. We don't need anybody to fund us to defend the Constitution as we are required by Article 3 of the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cyprian. Wakili Kibe Mungai.
Eric.
Yes, hold on, Janet.
Yes.
I wish to confirm that my colleague
Kibe, there's something not okay with your phone.
me?
Yeah, if you're using an earpiece, yes, now it's better. Try.
Okay. So the point I was making is that I confirm that when you are, the call of patriotism requires every person where it is something where you have some speciality and capacity to serve your country to do that with or without pay. This particular initiative by the particular petitioners, they wanted a lawyer and a group of them who would lead in ensuring that the important connection and the question that kept on being asking, that Jay-Z are pushing the country into a crisis, and is that true or not? I confirm to the petitioners their beliefs that the Constitution of Kenya does indeed provide a procedure for the direct exercise of the sovereign power without any amendment whatsoever, because we already have IEBC, we had 2 previous referendum. Therefore, it is possible to do what we are doing. The question that was asked by a gentleman about the fact that they do not believe in the courts and their capacity to do justice, I think it may not be entirely fair to the courts for 2 reasons. Number one, the fact that we have a referendum at all in Kenya, it has its genesis not in parliament, but in the court, the High Court in the Njoya case. Number 2 is that we have a new constitution that ultimately is traceable to the courts. During this series of events, we have a situation whereby the Inspector General have tried to declare that Mandamano are illegal. The court gave orders requiring that Mandamano can go on, and there were also orders where the police were told you cannot use certain weapons, but unfortunately, they have not followed that. Therefore, it is my belief that we need to try the court. There is a lot of goodwill. I need to say that I know very many good judges, people like Judge Bajanja, who are my classmates. They are decent people and people who have been involved in the struggle for human rights and constitutionalism. Therefore, I have the full confidence that we have a good case. The High Court of the Republic of Kenya, that we have a referendum so that the serious question of legitimacy and incompetence and the violations of law that have been taking place can be addressed by the people of Kenya in a referendum. Now that it is obvious, Parliament was captured a while back by Kenya Kwanza, And the situation is now likely to be worse now that some people from ODM have decided to join Kenya Kwanza in making the situation worse. Therefore, I urge everybody to keep the faith. We have a constitution that is respected by lawyers, by all of us who are on this platform today, and I believe by the judges. Mbele iko sawa.
Respond to this issue, Kibe Mungai, that it has been raised by Professor Migaya Kech, it has also been raised by Professor Kivuda Kibwana on, and others, I think. You are adamant that the procedure is provided for in the Constitution on people exercising their power directly. Then there's the other school of thought that maybe this procedure is not clear. Probably what you could do is also handle one prayer in the Supreme Court, constitutional interpretation is their procedure, as you're seeking the other route in the High Court. Does this make sense?
The direct answer to that question, starting with the Supreme Court, the fact is that as an individual, as petitioners, you do not have a right to go for advice of your opinion in the Supreme Court. And therefore, for the petitioners who are my client, cannot be able to exercise that right, go and seek that advice of opinion. It is a limited right. Number two, and I believe we shall have a more technical forum to discuss this, is that this issue of referendum, a referendum law, as I said, in an ideal situation, we should have a referendum law. But a referendum law would be a law that is based on the recognition that the Constitution has provided for it. Let us give an example. The right under Article, I believe, 37 of the protest and picketing, there is no law that provides for it. But we have been going to do the mandamano based directly on the Constitution. Therefore, the apprehension that there is no procedure would not be correct, because we have IEBC, and it is the responsibility of IEBC to conduct referenda. And we have already held two. So the anxiety that is there, I insist, has got no basis, provided there is a law saying who is supposed to conduct referendum, and the substantive right exists in Article 1. And I believe all those colleagues you have mentioned are friends of mine. We should have hope one of these days, and I will allay their fears.
Okay.
There is no gap whatsoever.
Thank you, Kibe Mungai. So, Prof. Migai and Kibwana, chai has been offered. Now, Janet, you have a hand up, and then we'll hear from Mugambi. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like us to conclude this conversation shortly. So these are like final submissions, and then we'll come back to the petitioners, and Wakili Lempa will close for us. Janet?
Thank you very, very much, Eric. And I really want us to learn a lot from what the GenZs have taught us. And I pick from them three principles. And one of them is the principle of volunteerism. Having been a player in the political sector, if we do not insist on volunteerism and insist that to take part in everything, there has to involve money, a lot of things would not have been possible if there was all that money involved in the organization of the GenZs. And that is why you're seeing, the ruling class wondering who is funding the GenZs. But I am aware a lot of them were funding their own activities. A lot of them were just volunteering to do a lot of things. And we need to be challenged by that. And people need to believe that even in processes like these ones, there are lawyers that act pro bono, there are lawyers that are, and other professionals that are willing to do anything, for free, to just volunteer their expertise for the sake of the cause. The other thing is about us demanding thorough accountability, like we have learned with the GenZs, without making excuses. That our courts are ABCD. So what do we do? Do we die? Do we stop trying? Do we stop challenging? Do we stop expecting more? What do we do? And the third one is about patriotism. The belief, and the want for a better country, without so much looking at the gain that we have towards that end. Because a lot of these expectations what has bred the political situation that we have, that for anybody, and that's why people are not even believing that when we say that there can be new organizations, people are wondering, where would you get crazy monies? Because people believe that for you to be a president or to vie as a president in this country, you must have billions and billions of money. I put you to test. Even if you have served for 10 years as a member of parliament, how would you be able to accumulate 2 billion unless you have stolen? We know the salaries that they earn and the expectations that they have from people. So I think also some of these processes are part of educating citizens that we are part of this mess, we are part of this problem, unless we are thoroughly patriotic, unless we demand total accountability, unless we want to, also, we are ready to embrace a volunteerism, we are not going to change this country, Eric. So for me, I really believe that even if this process we are engaged in might not yield our expectation, I know it will achieve a lot in terms of telling and shaking the political class to know, hey, the 5-year mandate is not guaranteed. There is something that citizens of this country must do, and therefore I totally believe that it is not an exercise in futility. It is an exercise that as citizens of this country we must rally behind so that we get the impact that we desire. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much, Janet. Mugambi, you want to contribute? Mugambi Nandi.
Thank you very much, Eric, and everybody else on the platform. I'll begin by first saluting fallen comrades who have given their blood, their lives, so that we may have a better Kenya. And then I'll go straight to my contribution today, and I think that it is necessary to get an opinion or a declaration from the High Court, since Kibe says we cannot go to the Supreme Court regarding the exercise of the power given in Article 1 and 2. And I am thinking, looking at Article 255 and 256, the Constitution actually envisages two types of referenda. If you look at Article 1 or Article 255, 1 and 2, which is about amendments which include the term of the office of president, that particular referendum is distinguished from the referendum envisaged in Article 255.3, which is the one that goes through the county assemblies. So I think, as most of you might already know, I'm not a constitutional litigation lawyer, but I'm throwing this out for us to think about, and specifically to my friend Kibe and others, to think about looking at the distinction between the referendum as stated in Article 255, 1 and 2, and the referendum that goes through the county assemblies in Article 255, Sub-Article 3. The next thing I would like to say is that while I agree with Welie that it is important for GenZs to have structures and things like that, I don't think it is priority at the moment, because it is possible to elect sound people into public office as independent candidates, or even as members of existing political parties. What I think is probably more important is to push for certain important amendments to the Constitution before the next election, whether it's 2027 or before, because one of the things Gen Zs have complained about, and I agree with them, is the cost of government, the size of government. If we agree that we are overrepresented, that we have 400 MPs and we have 2,000 plus MCAs, and a lot of them are nominated, and we want to reduce that number, the best way is to reduce that number before the next election, so that that amendment takes effect with effect from the next election. And so I would say that that is probably something that we need to consider, and at the same time entrench Chapter 6, so that the ruling that people can serve in public office unless they've exhausted all appeals when they have criminal and corruption cases needs to be firmly and strongly resisted and removed from the constitution, so that we don't have people who should be in jail sitting in parliament and ensuring that they are not facing due process. I think I'd like to end my contribution there, and once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mugambi, and thank you to all who have joined in. Very many comments as well on our comment section. Many people who had requested to speak. I believe in keeping conversations short and sweet. We've done this for about 2.5 hours now, going on to 3, and I propose that we end it here. But like I told the petitioners, as I was saying, let's have this conversation. This is the beginning of a journey. What I hear tonight is people exploring the excuse me, the options of exercising the supreme powers that we have as citizens through this constitution. 14 petitioners have gone to court. They are supported by 16 advocates who are coming out here to say, how do we actually actualize our constitution? Many other scholars joining in and saying, how about we approach this route and the other one? Many citizens saying, this is a good way, or maybe it may not be the right way to go. It's a beginning of a conversation. I'd like to propose that we continue having these conversations. We'll host another one again with Kenya Bora Tuitakayo in coming days, which we plan to incorporate all this feedback, take in more questions, and this time just open it to the public. What do you think about the call to recall a president through a referendum? Is it a good way? Is it a bad way? And we shall make it a debate. I want to thank you very much for that. So I want to come in now to some of the petitioners and then the advocate, one of the advocates, to come and close. I think I will give the microphone to Cyprian. Cyprian Nyamamu is a spokesperson for Kenya Bora Tuitakayo. You will close, but before you do that, Lempa, as Wakili, you can take us through the next steps and what you expect to see in coming days, in coming weeks, in coming months. Wakili Lempa.
Thank you very much for giving me the second bite. Thank you everyone who has contributed to this debate. It has been very enlightening. We expect, of course, the judge has given directions. We expect the respondents to put in their responses, and we probably expect a PO on so many of the questions that we have raised. And of course, that is one of the delaying tactics. You realize when a party does not have a clear defense in a matter, they opt for delaying tactics. Thank you very much. We expect a lot of work, a lot of research to go into this, because of course you expect them to bring in very seasoned lawyers, of course, to oppose the petition and face us in court. But as my senior Mr. Kibe says, and as in Kiswahili huwa tunasema tuko na kifua cha kupambana na wao. My senior has explained it very clearly that in times of critical juncture, sometimes you do not require money to be paid. And I can give you an example of about 2 weeks ago, when the Kenya Kwanza Gulag arrested about 187 GenZs and presented them to court at around 8 p.m. A galaxy or a phalanx of advocates from LSK, led by Faith Viembo, turned up and were leaving the court at around midnight, which was a service to the Republic with no pay. So the question as who is funding the GenZs, or who is funding the advocates, should not arise at this time. It's like probably someone would have asked in 1950s during the British Gulag, who is funding the Mau Mau. It is a case of patriotism. And thank you very much, gentlemen, for turning up for this. We have learned a lot. And I believe my senior, Mr. Kibe, and other advocates in the matter will incorporate all your concerns for us to strengthen the petition. We are still at the early stages of the petition, and if needs be, probably Mr. Kibe will guide us on whether to amend the constitution and put in some of your concerns. But insofar as we are concerned, as Mr. Kibe has said, we have a very strong petition, and we believe that we have presented a very hot potato to the judiciary or to the court.
and we do not expect them to take it very slowly along the edges of a ball. Thank you very much, Mr. Latif. I now defer to Mr. Kibe and Mr. Cyprian Nyamwamu.
Asante sana Lempa. Indeed, it's a hot potato, not just for the courts, but for the entire country. Cyprian Nyamwamu, close this for us. Oh, no, before you do that, Wakili Kibe, come in, Wakili.
Yes, I think I need to do two things in closing. Number one is to say to my learned friend, Mr. Mugambi, that it is true the Constitution has provided a clear procedure for amendment and to deal with certain kinds of referendums that are provided for in articles of the Constitution. But remember that the Constitution itself is not exhaustive, and it is stated clearly in Article 19 and 20. The rights under Article 1, that is the spirit of the Constitution from the Chief Justice Emeritus Mutunga, is that the enumeration of any right is not a complete list. Therefore, if there is an Article 1 in existence, that article can be implemented with or without a specific procedure under the Constitution and provided for in a law by Parliament. Finally, I end up by saying that we are very grateful for the many opinions that have been given. We can now anticipate many of the doubts that probably be in the opposition, on the opposition side from the judges. We are going to make a richer petition, because I believe this is a petition that at some stage would require some amendment, because very many people who have read it keep saying, oh, you should have explained this a little bit more or the other. We have received a lot of commentaries from the general members of the public, some very educated than us, and we are grateful to all of them. People want to see results, because we do not want paralysis in resolutions of national problems. If the question of legitimacy arises, like it did arise in England, about whether to be in the European Union or not, the supreme authority of the people must be invoked. We are invoking it this instance. I am confident the High Court will not stand in the way if we demonstrate that indeed we have had an incompetent government that has lost legitimacy. Thank you very much. Very glad to organize this.
Thank you. Thank you, Wakili. Cyprian.
Thank you very much, Eric. First of all, to really thank you, Eric, and those who co-hosted the space with you. I want to close tonight's very rich engagement that has gone down by quoting what Chief Justice Emeritus David Maraga said on September 1st, 2017. He said, and I quote, that the greatness of any nation lies in its fidelity to the Constitution and adherence to the rule of law, and above all, respect to God. There are three things there that Chief Justice Maraga said that we must, first of all, operate in fidelity to our Constitution. Anytime we are outside the Constitution, like it has been more than 36 times now, since 2022, we are going to be in chaos and we are going to breach the very peace of our country. Secondly, the rule of law. If we are not going to uphold the rule of law, we are going to destroy our economy and we are going to destroy every institution and pillar of this country. And finally, let us not use the word of God in vain, as it has been the culture now. We are being called upon to actually uphold a new culture that this Constitution has set out and must be governed by the Constitution. The GenZs and the millennials are telling us that the only way forward for this country is to operate within a new culture which is based on the values that the Constitution has approved. May God bless you, and I want to thank everyone. who found time to be on this very educative, very enriching debate. And particular to you, Eric, thank you and good night.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, Cyprian, and thank you to the 13 other petitioners who have taken this bold step, to the advocates, to everybody who's supporting it. For me, like I said from the very beginning, and I want to repeat, I'm not part of the petitioners, but as a journalist and somebody who likes to engage on matters of moving and advancing our country forward, I find this a very interesting conversation. Let's keep having it. I'll be reaching out to the organizers of Kenya Bora to Utakaya through Cyprian to see how we can maybe organize another conversation. Like I said, let's have another one, make it a more public debate for the lawyers also to get more feedback from the people. Like Wakili Kibe Mungai has said, they are open to getting more feedback, more suggestions, more ideas, and maybe they'll incorporate it and take it forward into their petition. Everybody who's joined in, thank you very much. Do have yourselves a lovely day, lovely night, wherever you are, and see you next time.